And from the U.S., President Donald Trump has warned that countries which side with the policies of the BRICS alliance that go against U.S. interest will be hit with an extra 10% tariff. Trump wrote on social media that any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10% tariff. The U.S. had set a July 9 deadline for countries to agree a trade deal. But U.S. officials now say tariffs will begin on August 1. Trump said he would send letters to countries telling them what the tariff rate will be if an agreement is not reached. So far, the U.S. has only struck trade agreements with the UK and Vietnam, as well as a partial deal with China. For this conversation, let's turn our attention to international affairs analyst Alexander von Rugen. Thank you very much for giving us your time. Let's begin with the very basics. What are these anti-American policies of BRICS that Trump is so worried about, enough for this additional 10% tariff? Alexander, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello. I'm asking. Thanks for being here.
In reference to Trump's 10% tariff and how it's going to affect the BRICS, I think much of what Trump has said over the last months has already been effectuated. This now further comment on 10% additional tariffs. The definition of imposing the tariff was if they were going to undermine the U.S. dollar, but without giving any specific conditions as to what that undermining means. I think he's sending a message to the BRICS group that they don't embolden themselves against the U.S. and the tariff policies of President Trump, while he's still negotiating with many different countries on a one-to-one basis. The fact that there was silence at the summit from India and Brazil on speaking negatively about Trump. In fact, they hardly mentioned his name at all. There was little reference to Israel, other than the war in Gaza and the atrocities should cease. And there was very little mention of the conflict in the Ukraine with Russia, other than stating that the Ukraine has bombed Russia. And of course, Russia is also a member of the BRICS, although President Putin was also not present at the summit, probably because he has an international arrest warrant on him. And most prominently not there was Xi Jinping, the president of China, who's never missed a BRICS summit in 10 years. What does this tell us?
But the BRICS countries have clearly rejected the label of being anti-American. They say they are seeking a multilateral world order that Washington has denied and denounced, rather, time and time again. How do you see these distinct worldviews existing side by side?
Well, let's compare it to a marriage. The BRICS countries are married to the West, married to America for trade, independence on the IMF and the World Bank. But they'd like to have a mistress, and they want to see if they can live side by side with that kind of relationship. Maybe it'll work. Ultimately, they may find the divorce of the marriage is too costly. They want to have their independence because they'd like to get around the U.S. policies of being the global policeman, and also the U.S. dollar being the prominent currency for world commerce and commodity trading. But to accomplish that, you have to have more stable currencies within your own realm. And when you have 7 of the most fiscally irresponsible central banks of the world maybe getting together to form their own currency, your guess is as good as mine as to how that's going to turn out. I think the global trend towards gold is an indication of moving towards more stable currencies. We see that in many countries, especially in Africa now, where the countries are buying up their own gold to prop up their own currencies in their central banks. And I think that's a wise move. Also, there's a trend moving towards digitization of currencies in various countries, block by blockchain, which means they can't cheat. Everything's documented. But until that happens, I see the BRICS gaining momentum, but I don't think they're going to be standing on their own anytime soon. Trump needs to keep his negotiation power plays in order. Nobody likes a bully, even when the bully is correct. The knee-jerk reaction is to resist the bully, even if he's talking common sense. Now, the other underlying fact you have to understand is most of the BRICS countries have very high tariffs against U.S. imports, ranging. India and Brazil, for example, are between 11 and 55% on U.S. goods being imported into their countries. So what is the net result of tariffs? Well, first of all, it's the U.S. taxpayer that's going to pay for it. Those tariffs are imposed upon U.S. citizens, not on foreign citizens.
All right.
I would think they might want to call the tariff a new flat tax as opposed to a tariff.
All right. Yeah. Before we let you go, in 40 seconds, if you can, assuming President Trump's threat of 10% tariff came to be after July 9, what would that, rather, where would that leave the state of play for the global economy?
Could you repeat the question again? I'm having problems with the transmission.
Okay, I'm saying assuming that President Trump's threat of 10% tariff came to be after July 9, where would that leave the state of play for the global economy?
I don't think it's going to affect it much because, again, the taxes or the tariff is being imposed upon American consumers. The whole theory is to impose tariffs to incentivize the American economy to make America great again and move manufacturing that has been outsourced to other countries back to America. Realistically, that may apply to certain industry verticals, but things such as agriculture and products that are unique to certain countries, it shouldn't be applicable. And I think we're going to go through an evolution of these tariff negotiations because America's going to realize there's certain things that can't be made in America. And why should we tax our own people? Unless, of course, the ultimate gain here is to create a flat tax for the government to win in America. And maybe that's the agenda. It's just nobody's talking about it or calling it that.
I guess we'll wait and see what happens. Thank you very much, Alexander, for speaking with us.